So in this video, we will look at first what is DevOps and also look at how DevOps works in your organization or for your project and what are the key benefits that it can bring to your project. And if you're not already following DevOps, what you need to do to make a transition to DevOps. And finally, we will look at the different practices that are part of DevOps, which are basically making it a very famous and easily adaptable. So let's get started. Donovan Brown, a chief evangelist and who works with Microsoft, defines DevOps as the union of people, process, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to the end users. Note that he uses the word continuous delivery of value rather than continuous delivery of software. That's basically because DevOps is not just automating your pipeline so that you can quickly go and deliver your software. The goal is not to deliver software, rather, the goal is to deliver value. If you are delivering something and it is not really creating a value to the end user, then it's not really useful, right? And that's not really what we want. We want whatever the work we put in to create some value to someone else. And also note that it tells the keyword end user. Okay, so he uses end users deliberately because if the value only reaches your dev team or your QA team, but it is held up even before going to production where your end users can go and access, that value is not really fully realized. It's still failing. So the two things that I would like you to take note of is DevOps is nothing but continuous delivery of value to your end users all the way to production. Not only your dev or test, but to production. And it is very important to realize that DevOps is not a technology, is not a product. You just cannot go and buy DevOps and install it in your organization. DevOps is not just automation, okay? It is the people who are working in the organization coming together, following a set of processes that are enabled by your products. And why we need to do all that? So that we deliver the value to the end users. So that's what DevOps is. So having understood what a DevOps is, let's look at how DevOps works. Under a DevOps model, the development team and your operations team are no longer separate or they are no longer siloed. These two teams are merged into a single team where people from both the teams work with each other, they collaborate with each other across the entire application lifecycle from your development to test to deployment to operations throughout the entire cycle. And this collaboration, they develop a range of skills that is not only limited to a particular function, like for example, ops or only dev. So they both learn from each other, they both collaborate and communicate with each other. And that's not it. In some DevOps model, your quality assurance and security teams may also become tightly integrated with the already existing development on the operations team throughout your entire life cycle. So you may ask what these teams do by coming together. They come together and automate the processes that historically have been manual and slow. So they choose their favorite technology stack and their favorite tooling, which will help them operate and evolve your applications quickly and reliably. So if you see, the main idea is to automate your laborious tasks. By doing automation, they can focus on creating business logic, creating business value that will increase the team's velocity. So let's discuss the key benefits that DevOps brings to your organization. The first benefit is that of speed. So using DevOps, you can move at a really high velocity so you can innovate for your customers faster, and you can also try to adapt to changing markets better. So delivering the features at a very fast rate helps you become more efficient at driving your business results. The second benefit is that of reliability. So, what do I mean by reliability is ensuring the quality of your application updates or your infrastructure changes so that you can reliably deliver at a more rapid pace while maintaining a very positive experience for the users who are going to use your application. So, reliability means when you're doing some changes, it should not break. When you are doing an infrastructure change or an application change, you are developing a new feature, everything should work the way it is. So in DevOps, you basically ensure reliability by using DevOps practices like, for example, your continuous integration and continuous delivery to test each change and to make sure that each of your changes that you check into the source control is functional and valid and safe. The third benefit of DevOps is scale. So using DevOps, you can operate and manage your infrastructure and all your entire pipeline at scale. So what do I mean by scale? For example, using DevOps, you can use what is known as infrastructure as code that can basically help you manage your development, testing, and production environments in a repeatable and more efficient manner. So you need not actually go and manually spin up the VMs or any of the different infrastructures. So you use infrastructure as a code that basically does all the deployments for you. We will learn more about what is infrastructure as code in just a bit. Now we will look at how to transition to DevOps. You might not be using DevOps today, but you may want to use DevOps sooner rather than later to take advantage of the numerous benefits that it provides. Transitioning to DevOps requires a change in your culture and change in your mindset. So DevOps is actually a portmanteau of Dev and Ops, and the name indicates the same. So DevOps is about your development team and the operations team coming together. So when they come together, there are no barriers between them. So they are no more a traditional siloed teams. So they both work together and there is better communication and collaboration happening between them. And that requires a change in culture and mindset. So it's no more like I am from the development team and I am involved or tasked only with development. And once development is done, I do not just throw away the code through my operations team for them to take care of deployment. It is both the development team and the operations team working together. And the same with the operations team. They are just not like tasked with the development, or rather I should say operations. They should be working together from the ground up, from the beginning, so they know what are the groundbreaking changes that the development team is doing, so that will help in better deployment of the code. So have teams that do both, or have teams that do everything. In some organizations, there may not be even separate development and operations team. Okay, so engineers do both. So with DevOps, the two teams work to optimize the productivity of developers and the reliability of your operations team. And I cannot stress this third point more importantly. Okay, communication and collaboration is the key to DevOps. Okay, so you need to strive to communicate frequently as and when possible, because it increases efficiencies and the quality of services that you can provide to your customers. And this point is more related to cultural shift. So it's no longer like I worked on a feature or I worked on a user story. So if any bug comes in the future, I will only fix the bugs that I worked on in earlier. It's no longer like that. You need to embrace complete code ownership. You need to take full ownership for the services, just often beyond your stated roles or titles that traditionally have been scored by thinking about end users' needs. And successful organizations using a DevOps model, regardless of their organizational structure, they have teams that view the entire development and infrastructure lifecycle as part of their responsibilities. So it's not like development team is responsible for only coding and the operations team is responsible for only deployment. So no longer those barriers are going to exist within your DevOps model. So you need to have this cultural change. So now we will look at the common practices that are used in DevOps. So the first one is continuous integration and continuous delivery. We will discuss about these two terms specifically in the next video because the entire course is based on CI and CD. So I have allocated a separate video to discuss about them. And the third practice is using microservices architecture. So the microservices architecture is nothing but a design approach to build an application as a set of small services. Rather than building an application as a big monolith, you are going to design the application as small services that are independently deployable and they can call each other. So if you see Amazon.com, Amazon on its webpage, it provides many different information. Like for example, you have an information for seller rating, you have an information for price, you have lots of different information, and each information, if you see, it's pulled up by one particular service. So many services are in action on a single Amazon page to provide the details that you require, and that's what I call a microservices architecture. And the fourth practice is using infrastructure as a code. Infrastructure as a code is a practice in which your infrastructure is provisioned and managed using code and other software development techniques like version control and so on. So if you see the cloud's API driven model, and you can think of Azure. So Azure, to interact with the infrastructure within Azure, they have exposed a set of APIs. So you can basically interact with those APIs and provision your infrastructure programmatically and at scale instead of needing to manually going and setting up and configuring your service. So that's what I mean infrastructure as a code. So what it actually means is you have a template, for example, a JSON template, and you just say, I need a VM at this particular location and the VM size is this much and so on. So looking at those details, the Azure provisions a VM automatically rather than like the traditional stuff where you would go and buy servers, you would do all the configuration yourself and so on. And communication, not just communication, it's a frequent communication and collaboration. And I have stressed this a lot of times in this video. It is a key cultural aspect of DevOps. And finally, we have monitoring. Okay, so you need to monitor metrics and logs of how your application is doing on the infrastructure, your infrastructure performance, and how your users are interacting with the new features that you have deployed. So by collecting the data of how your application is running, how your users are interacting, whether they are really liking your app or not, they are really liking the new features or not, you can understand a lot about the customers, and that will help you in creating new features that will bring you more value to the business. So in summary, I hope you have a really good understanding of what DevOps is, its beliefs, its practices, and so on. Thank you.